Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, with a wonderful energy guest, Marco Mangelsdorf of Provision Solar, who joins us by Skype from Hilo. And we're talking here. We have an issue about exactly what the title of the show is. Let me read you the possibilities. Plugging in on solar, looking for traction in all the right places, and enjoy the calm before energy, the calm before the storm. Which one do you vote for, Marco?
Well, first of all, Jay, I want to tell you what a pleasure it is, as always, to be back with you. And I got to thinking about this earlier today, that there's really, if there's something better to do with my time than spend an hour on a Monday speaking with you, I haven't found it.
May I say the same?
So,
May I say the same for you?
Great to be back.
Really enjoy this. It educates me so much to talk to you.
I kind of lean towards the last one. I think we're in a bit of a quiescent period now, and kind of metaphorically, I read earlier today that we're kind of officially ending hurricane season. So, you know, this nasty Zell and Julio business that plagued us a number of months ago, supposedly they're gone for the season, adios. And, you know, metaphorically, so it's supposed to be calmer now, and at least weather-wise, and here I'm thinking, you know, as far as energy issues, it seems like things have quieted a bit as well. You know, more kind of Kona winds, not so much heavy trades, where folks are maybe hunkering down for the holidays, and we're eagerly anticipating the next governor of the great state of Hawaii becoming the new gov on December 1st, David Ige, a self-described engineer, of course, which he is by training and seemingly by disposition and demeanor as well. And what mark is he going to make on the energy scene, both in a regulatory fashion and through his office as chief executive? So it just seems kind of a quiet period right now. People perhaps a little bit less vigorously are claiming or wishing for the heads of Hawaiian Electric on a stick, which seems like some of the rhetoric in the past months or year or so has been rather apocalyptic in terms of demanding changes from Hawaiian Electric. So I think we're just a little bit calm now, and I don't think that's going to last.
Well, let me just respond to some of that. I mean, if we're in a quiet period now, and I agree with you absolutely, I feel that it all seems so quiet. It must be that everything is quiet, but certainly energy is quiet. I don't think it was that big a deal in the election. I don't think it was a major. We had a very good. Sorry you weren't here for that. We had a very good gubernatorial forum, which went very well at the Laniakea in, I guess it was October 16th, and that really went well. But aside from that, you know, I don't think it was a big deal for the election, and there's no, you know, particular mandate coming out of it. And so when you say the calm before the storm, I mean, it interests me more in the storm. I want to know what the storm is. Can you give us a handle on what you expect will happen and how it will surprise and delight or maybe undelight us?
Well, in terms of prognosticating, the question regarding the makeup of the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, which is this group of 3 people and their staff who have really an enormous amount of, let's call it what it is, power and authority to make critical decisions for the state in so many different, really important areas, from energy, obviously, to transportation, telecommunications, and they have had, you know, at least certainly a degree of uncertainty with the fact that the chair of the committee, Hermina Morita, former top House rep in terms of energy issues.
Yeah, she was the chair of the Energy Committee for a long time.
Exactly, exactly, from the beautiful area of Hana Lake, Hawaii. I think very highly of Mina, and she is a holdover appointment when Neil Abercrombie decided earlier this year that he wasn't going to take action on nominating her or anybody else, for that matter, for a full, if I'm not mistaken, 6-year term with the Public Utilities Commission. So she has been serving at the pleasure essentially of the governor, and what is incoming Governor Ige going to do regarding this really important decision in terms of 1 out of 3 people who's going to be there in place as the PUC commissioner conceivably for at least 6 years. So is Mina Morita going to continue to be there, or is somebody else? And if it's somebody else, that's going to be a new dynamic. So
the chances, I think, see if you agree, the chances are that she will be reappointed because she's in good graces with the people around, David Ige, and and she's friendly with the legislature. She's, I'm sure that they know each other pretty well from years past, serving together in the legislature. Even though he was in the Senate, she was in the House. The only question, and I don't know who's speaking on this, the only question is, in the 4 years of the Abercrombie administration, exactly what's the track record, what's the report card on the PUC? One thing seems clear: there was a lot of argument with ECO, and you can blame HECO, but I think it takes 2 to argue, and maybe you have to blame the PUC too. And that isn't a great legacy. So it remains to be seen whether he's going to say, I want a fresh face in there, or I'll take my chances on continuing her in the hopes that there's a better vibration going forward.
Yeah, I'm not going to prognosticate in terms of will he or won't she keep Mina Morita on as chair, but I think it's very reasonable to observe that since she was essentially put on holdover status, I believe it was back in June, so now it's about 5 months later, that has added a level of uncertainty. I think that's a good word here. Uncertainty in terms of the commissioners being able to do their work in an expeditious, solid fashion when they truly do have so much on their plates in terms of so many dockets. I mean, solar alone, it's dozens and dozens of individual dockets. So,
yeah,
we'll
from the time it was established, which was something over 100 years ago, the mission of the PUC has changed so dramatically. You mentioned a minute ago, that it's involved in trucking, it's involved in telecom, it's involved in other things that have essentially gone away. I mean, I think trucking is still there, and they still regulate trucking and other transportation kinds of things. And at the same time, though, it just seems less important. So for the telephone company, I mean, their jurisdiction over the telephone company has been substantially reduced over the past few years, and so I don't think they spent a lot of time on regulating the telephone company. What they have come to spend their time on since, 2008 anyway, maybe a little earlier than that, but certainly since then, is energy. And I would say they must spend most of their time on energy, but the great majority, if not nearly all, of their docket cases are involving energy. And as you say, Marco, there's a million issues out there, and they're quasi-judicial, and they have their procedures, and they have a limited staff. But even with a larger staff, I think they'd still have a huge burden of going forward. I mean, that's why it has taken so long for their decisions. Move slowly, and I always wonder whether it's the right governmental organization to handle an area which itself is changing so quickly. I mean, we're in a transformation. Can we afford to have a commission that is rooted in procedures that were established, 100 years ago? Do we need to change? Do you think we need to change this, Marco?
Well, not so much fundamental change, but I think it's a pretty widespread perception and belief that the PUC needs help. The PUC needs help in order to do its job in a more robust and more expeditious fashion. And certainly part of that has to do with staff and infrastructure, from what I understand. So I think the commissioners are doing truly a heroic job given what's on their plate, but the mechanism, the bureaucratic mechanism and assets that they have in order to do their job more expeditiously I think is a lot of people would observe is kind of lacking.
Well, you know, they're getting an executive director. I think they have statutory authority for that now. It's a nice job. It's an open job. I'm not sure exactly who appoints the executive director. It might be the governor, and that's going to add a certain, you know, additional staff clout to the way they do business. I mean, he would be presumably the administrative arm of the PUC and could facilitate a lot of the problems they've had. So, although it sounds like another job, you know, another layer, but it also sounds like something that could really help them, you know, in their current bureaucratic malaise. So I'm looking forward to that. I wouldn't call it a storm. I would call it a positive thing, and I hope that the job is filled with somebody good, and that next year we can see, you know, more alacrity in the way they handle the cases and the dockets and get through the transformation. We can't afford to have dockets that take years to resolve.
No, I agree completely. And just to kind of flesh out a little bit further in terms of my storm analogy, we will have a new Congress in Washington the first week in January. We will have a new legislature, well, not completely new legislature, nor a new Congress, of course, in terms of 100% turnover. That never happens. But we'll have both a new Congress and a new legislature in Honolulu opening its doors in the first half of January. And I think going from the kind of the macro national to the micro, on the macro level, there's a level of antipathy, hostility from a growing, I would say, growing segment of the political spectrum towards renewable energy. And this is not just something happened last week or last month, but something I've been tracking and worried about over the past year or two, if not longer. And I think typically you're going to find that antipathy on the Republican side. So I think.
Well, why is that, Marco? Why is there an antipathy? I mean, a few years ago, at the beginning of the first Obama administration, he and everybody who followed him seemed like the whole country, certainly the whole state of Hawaii, loved the idea of clean energy. And now, boy, it's not the same at all. What's happened?
In no particular order, I'll lead off with Solyndra, because that got a lot of traction in, when was it, 2012, which, just for folks who don't know too much about Solyndra, Solyndra was a solar company, design company, manufacturer in the San Francisco Bay Area, or actually over in Fremont, that came up with shall I call it a new idea to produce solar electricity from solar cells. This was in 2005, actually during the Bush years, and they benefited from more than a $500 million guaranteed loan assurance from the U.S. Department of Energy. Again, this took place under George W. Bush, not Barack Obama. And it turned out that Solyndra's great idea was essentially made obsolete by the dramatic decrease in conventional solar electric module pricing, especially with heavy-duty competition from the Chinese. So in effect, it turned the Solyndra project, which looked product which looked good on paper in the mid-2000s, it turned it into a, shall we call it, the great white whale, or boondoggle. And Solyndra ended up declaring bankruptcy, and essentially the U.S. taxpayers were on the hook for more than $500 million in this loan guarantee program. And a number of Republicans, including Obama's opponent in 2012, Mitt Romney, essentially came after not only the president but also Democrats, as saying, look, this is how Democrats support these crazy ideas for crazy technologies when the government and the taxpayer and you, Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, you get you have to foot the bill. So that it got a lot of airplay. In fact, you still hear amongst the right-wing pundits with a scowl in their voice referring to Solyndra. So, but more substantively, I think there's a mistaken perception that this president is somehow anti all conventional energies except anti-conventional energies and only favors renewables, when that's not the case at all. I mean, you look at how, not to say it sound like a Obama sycophant, but you look at how both oil and natural gas production under this Democratic president have just taken off in states like North Dakota and others on the mainland. But
well,
it's
interesting how a campaign issue like that, he won the election, but he carries the baggage of that campaign issue, and from this discussion, it seems like that has followed him and has undermined his popularity. It's one of the many things that have undermined his popularity now in the second term, and thus his initiative toward clean energy. It's not a good thing.
Well, and you can certainly observe that this president has been typically quite vocal in terms of the dangers of climate change and greenhouse gases that are in fact human produced over the decades and over the centuries. In fact, look at the agreement that Obama and President Xi Jinping of China came to last week, that Obama has just been hammered ceaselessly from the lights of new Senate Majority Leader coming in, Mitch McConnell and John Boehner. Why? Because it's seen as a job killer in their state, at least in terms of, let's say, coal in Kentucky, which is where Mitch McConnell hails from. So it's reasonable to conclude that this president has been more active in trying to bring about controls and limitations and, God forbid, taxes on perhaps greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide, and so forth, and therefore the conventional energy companies and if you're a conspiracy theorist, Charles and David Koch have come out in great force with open pocketbooks to go after not only the president but go after renewable energy, because they see renewable energy, perhaps not now all that much, but in the years and decades to come, as a competitive threat to conventional fuels.
Well, you see how it was very noble and common good less than 10 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, and now it's fallen prey to national politics, which are pretty bloody, and that's too bad. And on the state level, one could make a similar statement. It's not as widely held. There's a lot of arguments going on, and we no longer are on a fast track to clean energy. We have to deal with these arguments. So on the federal level, though, Marco, what is it, a year or two from now, 2017, the federal tax credit on solar is going to sunset. What's your prediction? Will Congress renew it, or will it just go down the hopper?
Well, what you're referring to is the so-called ITC, or investment tax credit, which has been around for quite a long time, actually. It's not just solar related. It was, before solar got involved more dramatically, it was established in order to promote businesses for establishing growth. In other words, to be able to offset business expenses. If you're a business owner or corporation, to be able to offset some of your expenses to invest in capital improvements and invest in equipment, you could claim a portion of that as a tax credit and make it easier for you to grow, which, of course, the mantra of 20th century, 18th century, 19th century, 21st century economics is quantitative growth is not just good, but it's the holy grail. It's the manna that we all must search for and stay in our little hamster wheel to continue to grasp for quantitative economic growth. So
a lot of people don't subscribe to that anymore.
Well, I'm fearful that still far too many people do, and that quantitative growth in a finite system ultimately will lead to collapse. But that's probably for another conversation. But to go back to the ITC, it is scheduled to change January 1st, 2017. The ITC for businesses is scheduled to go from the present 30% credit to 10%, which it was, in fact, before it was increased to 30% under George W. Bush in 2005. The ITC for residential solar is scheduled to go from 30% to 0%, which will have a substantial effect in terms of the ROI and the economics of PV, not just for people here in Hawaii, but also for folks who go for PV on the mainland.
Well, let's take a short break at this point, Marco, and when we come back, I'd like your thoughts on how the investment tax credit for solar is going to change things in Hawaii. What effect will it have in a state where our solar industry is already beleaguered? That's Marco Mangelsdorf of Provision Solar here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. And I guess Marco favors, let's see, what is it? Energy, the calm before the storm. So let's take that as our adopted title for the show. We'll be right back after this short break.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Carlos Juarez, and I host Global Connections here on the ThinkTech broadcast series. We broadcast live every Thursday from 2 o'clock and also on Olelo 54. Please make sure to tune in and join us. We'll see you there.
Aloha, hello. My name is Hong Jiang, and I host ThinkTech Asia every Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. At our show, we talk about issues that are important in Asia, such as environment, culture, history, religion. We broadcast live, and we're also on Olelo 54. Make sure to tune in, and we'll see you there. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Marco Mangelsdorf, who joins us from Hilo at Provision Solar there by Skype. We're here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, and we're talking about energy, the calm before the storm. We're still ramping up to whatever the storm is, but we think it might be coming soon. So you finish your thoughts, please, Marco, on what's going to happen with the ITC in Congress.
I'm more pessimistic than optimistic at this point, Jay. Typically, we don't know until the last days, practically, or a month or two before the end of the year, when a tax credit, for example, is scheduled to expire. And what we do know is that in 2015, 2016, we will have Republicans in majority control of both the House and the Senate. And they typically have been less supportive of renewable energy overall than Democrats have been. And I'd be surprised if there was an agreement by a majority-controlled Congress to extend the ITC in its current form. So I'm feeling more pessimistic on that. To go from kind of the macro level to the more micro of our own state, I think it's going to be, it could be pretty stormy in Honolulu in terms of some energy issues. I hark back to the legislative briefing that took place in September that a number of legislators, both in the House and the Senate side, attended in Honolulu, and you had almost kind of the sacrificial lambs from Hawaii Electric of Jim Albert, who you and I both know, and Colton Ching, who's on their engineering staff. And those poor two guys were surrounded almost like lambs in a den of ravenous lions, both in terms of public and in terms of the PV integrators who were there, and in terms of the legislators who were just sharpening their knives. And I admire so much both of them, both Jim and Colton, for having the courage to go into the lion's den. And I think that could be kind of a preview, sneak preview of one or more committee meetings and hearings in the coming session, in terms of the legislators getting flack from their constituents and getting schmoozed by PV contractors and their execs, both from Hawaii and from the mainland,
yes,
who are saying that they've lost these number of jobs, they had to lay off these people, they had to sell trucks, their inventory or their revenue is way down, and it's all because of Hawaiian Electric. So I think there's going to continue to be, I hope I'm wrong, honestly, it wouldn't be the first time, but that kind of a yearning for burning people at the stake with the usual invitees to please come and join us for a barbecue dinner, the folks at Hawaiian Electric. So, I hope it's going to be more civil. I hope it's going to be more measured. I hope it's going to be more thoughtful rather than calling for heads. But it wouldn't surprise me if it is. Again, you look at some of the rhetoric of people like our friend Cynthia Thielen, who I like Cynthia. I think she's a great rep. But in terms of, gosh, she's kind of gone over the dark side when it comes to her rhetoric and her energy and her attitude towards Hawaiian Electric, and I just don't see that as helpful.
Oh, I agree, and that includes the members of the energy committees on both House and Senate. I mean, they're on a tear against Hawaiian Electric, and they don't pretend to try to patch it up. They want to do punishment, and the PUC seems to be in the same place, and I don't think that's good. I don't think the PUC should do that. So you get the legislature and the PUC both beating up on HECO, and HECO trying to do the right thing. They got a new CEO, and he makes promises that he's going to resolve the interconnect issue. What do you think about that? I mean, it's been about 6 weeks now since those promises. What action has there been? How does it look? Has public policy, public reaction, public opinion improved around HECO in that period?
I'd be happy to answer. Let me just first put in kind of a plug for Senator Mike Gabbard, who's chair of the Energy Committee on the Senate side. I don't believe personally that Mike is one of the flamethrowers. I think he's one of the more balanced, thoughtful minds there, and he's real good on energy issues in general. And I don't put him in the same category as some of these other fire breathers. So I just wanted to put.
I'm with you on that. I agree with that. I think he's a deal maker, brings people together, tries to work it out, and that's what we need. We need that kind of approach here, to get back on the track. I agree with you. Anyways, so going back to whether HECO is making the progress we had hoped.
There was a very interesting letter that Hawaiian Electric provided to the PUC. This was, I'm going to say, about three or 4 weeks ago, if memory serves me correctly. And essentially, one of the priorities, and the commissioners have made this very clear, one of the priorities we're dealing with Hawaiian Electric is, look, we are really concerned about this growing number of people, especially on Oahu, which is now in the 4,500, 600 range, of people who claim that they want to go solar electric and who are essentially being told, no can right now, you must wait. That's been a very high priority for the commissioners in terms of, come on, Hawaiian Electric, give us something more tangible, more clear, more definitive. How are you going to clear this queue? What measures are you going to take to do it? And I think they've really had HECO's attention in terms of giving them that order, essentially, well, maybe not formal order, but giving them that directive to figure out a way to clear the queue. So Hawaiian Electric came up with this letter that they submitted to the PUC and was published in the press, and essentially has to do with, without getting into too much techno speak here, rather arcane details of inverter frequency parameters and trip times, and I'm not going to get into a detailed discussion on that because I just don't think it's important to do so for our conversation. But again, for those people who may not know what an inverter is the box of electronics essentially that takes the direct current power from a solar array, from most solar arrays, and converts it to alternating current, which is what essentially plugs into your home distribution system or to your load center if you're a business and so forth. And what Hawaiian Electric said is that we are working on having these parameters change with the inverter manufacturers so that we plan to be able to clear these thousands of people, again, 4,500 some odd people on Oahu and 300 plus on both the Big Island for Helco and 300 plus for Maui Electric, which is now Maui, Molokai, and Lanai. But again, the real heavy lifting is on Oahu, and it got a fair amount of positive airplay, so to speak, and for those homeowners who are in that kind of limbo land category, as well as the contractors who have 200, 300 or more of that 4,500 in their particular sales pipeline. I mean, it's a big deal. It's not trivial. So I think that letter kind of got Hawaiian Electric some breathing space in terms of, oh, okay, here's the plan. That sounds relatively positive. They're saying X number by April, X number by December. But I've actually had a chance to dig a bit deeper on that, and it's not as cut and dry as one could conclude just by reading the letter that Hawaiian Electric sent to the PUC. And what I mean by that is that it is not a done deal between Hawaiian Electric and the inverter manufacturers as to what exact parameters, in other words, what hoops these manufacturers, and we're talking about not one, not two, but perhaps not as many as a dozen, but somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. These manufacturers having to jump through these hoops in order to meet Hawaiian Electric requirements to be able to install these systems in these highly saturated or high saturation circuits.
So it may not happen all as quickly as they were saying?
I think that was going to be kind of my summation, Jay, or my takeaway is that I see the practicality and the reality of the words from the letter and the desire, the intent of the letter, which I take them at face value. I don't think they're trying to blow smoke, but I think when it comes to actual implementation, as per their schedule, I wouldn't. Let me put it this way: I wouldn't be at all surprised if there were to be challenges and delays, and not all by any means based on utility foot dragging or some other type of nefarious plot on the part of the utilities to keep solar at bay and stop losing customers and reduce kilowatt hour sales and all this other stuff you find out there from some other people out there. But it is not a slam dunk. It is not a slam dunk on the part of the inverter manufacturers to jump through these hoops, which is going to cost them money, and get them certified, which is going to cost them money, certified by a nationally recognized testing laboratory, and most people have heard of UL Underwriters Laboratory. They're the big one, but there are other ones out there as well. It's not a slam dunk to get where we all want to go.
Marco, let's take a short break.
Yeah.
When we come back, I'd like to look at other, implications of this and what we've been talking about, including what's going to happen at DBED with the appointment of a new DBED director by the new governor. That's Marco Mangelsdorf in Provision Solar in Hilo. He joins us by Skype to talk about the calm before the storm in energy here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
Aloha, my name is Kenneth Lawson. I'm your host here at Life in the Law. I'm really interested in law as I practiced it for 18 years before coming to Hawaii. I practiced criminal law and civil rights law on the mainland. Now I teach law at the University of Hawaii Law School, William S. Richardson School of Law, and I bring in guests who are very current on legal issues that affect your life here in Hawaii. Come and join me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. as we explore how the law affects you, how the law is changing, and why it's important that you should care about what's going on in your community. See you then.
Okay, we're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidell here in the State of Clean Energy with Marco Mangelsdorf, who joins us by Skype from Provision Solar in Hilo, talking about the energy, the calm before the storm here in Hawaii. So, Marco, let me move the needle on a little bit to talk about how all these things, all these factors and vectors we've been talking about, all these events in the calm, if you will, looking to the storm, are going to be changed or otherwise affected by the appointment of a new DBED director, which probably should happen in a few weeks under the new David Ige administration. I mean, in early December, he's going to be sworn in, inauguration, and he's going to start looking, if he isn't already looking, for new cabinet heads, and one of them, maybe the most important one, is the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, which has come, just as the PUC has come to be focused largely around energy, so has DBED, interestingly enough. But DBED in the past, in the Abercrombie years, really didn't do that much on energy. And now the question is, what will David Ige do? Because the new director of DBED will have, could have, I shouldn't say will have, but could have a huge effect, because he is, in effect, by law, the state energy officer and could do remarkable things that have not been done over the past 4 years. What do you think? What do you think about the appointment? What do you think about the effect of it?
Well, let me just go back for a moment and note that, and you and I have talked about GEMS before, which got some coverage just yesterday in yesterday's Star Advertiser. That the GEMS program is taking place under Abercrombie, and I think it probably would have done a lot more if it was in place 2 or 3 years ago. But essentially, once it does get operationalized, whether that's next month or January, if I remember correctly from the piece, would allow ratepayers to do on-bill financing, the bill being their utility bill, where they would pay back their solar electric system, the purchase of the solar electric system, through just adding X amount to their utility bill. And if in fact that's able to enlarge the pool to allow renters, let's say, or condo livers to be able to do solar, or as well those people whose credit score may not be all that great to allow them to finance solar on their own, then that conceivably is a good thing. But as I mentioned, I think before, the fact that you've got all these other finance companies from Sunrun to Solar City and Vivint and SunPower and Clean Power Finance and Sunnova that have been in our state now for sometimes as long as 3 or 4 years, I think there's not so much a lacking in financing to do solar in the state. There's more kind of a challenge.
Well, that's true. There's no lack of money, and those guys, that's what has made Vivint and Solar City so successful here, because they have not only brought in very efficient installation techniques and panels, but they have provided financing products that have made it easy for people to get solar. I don't think the problem is money, and I think GEMS is the solution to a non-problem. The other thing, and I wrote an article about this a few months ago. I don't think it had much effect, but my view of it was that that the DBED was trying to fly this by on some kind of expedited basis, doing end runs and not really explaining exactly what was going on. With on-bill financing, they had a big committee from the community. They didn't have that with GEMS, and they were just trying to get it under the radar. And now it's, I don't know what's going to happen, but now it's apparently going for the issuance of $150 million bonds. And these bonds are going to be backed by the ratepayers, and gee whiz, that's to cover installations by people who can't obtain other financing with low credit scores. So we'll have a lot of people with low credit scores and much more solar, more than we can actually install until HECO gets the technology together. And I'm not sure that GEMS are going to do anybody any favors, except maybe jobs. There'll be jobs in government, and there'll be a whole layer of bureaucracy around government taking our tax money and lending it out to people who don't have high credit scores. That, to me, in a market where the local industry should be doing that, not government. I always get nervous when government lends my money out to someone with a low credit score. Sorry, that's my rant. You okay?
Sure. I mean, in terms of different leadership at DBED, I'm kind of struggling, Jay. I'm trying to see or figure out how, in terms of kind of the grand scheme of things, if you look at Hawaii's energy situation, Hawaii's energy picture, it boils down to two fundamental kind of different market segments. One is electricity generation, right? The other is transportation. And to what extent can a government agency that has a bunch of hardworking, bright staff, and I say that with complete honesty, with a straight face, what expected difference can such an agency truly make? Is
well,
it going to be?
It has to be invented, don't you think? I mean, what's happened is DBED used to be economic development. Well, I don't think DBED has affirmatively, created economic development in a long time. It either doesn't happen or it happens in ways that DBED is not involved. Tourism. I mean, tourism has HTA. They have $100 million plus of tax money to spend at HTA, and I don't think they need much help from DBED. And just like the PUC, over the years, over recent years, it has, evolved into an organization that does precious little but energy. The problem is that DBED hasn't done much energy, and now all the problems that you and I are identifying could be actually ameliorated with a strong hand at the helm of DBED. So really, I hope David Ige is listening. This is a very important appointment, not only on the business economic development side and the tourism side, but even more on the energy side. And he should find somebody who knows something about energy, and he should empower that person to really take some steps. I mean, one of those steps, for example, would be to twist arm and put everybody on the same page and work out these differences and avoid these, long-term fights in front of the PUC and make energy work again. And this could all happen.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot, Jay. I'm going to take what you said at face value, and I'm going to ask you honestly, what difference, what substantial rather than kind of nominal or at the margins difference, what substantial difference can a agency like DBED make?
Good question. And the answer is organizing the business of renewable energy, bringing new technological possibilities to the state, maybe even manufacturing or at least expertise, and of course, as I mentioned a minute ago, twisting arm, put people, put them together instead of in factions, and put them together instead of in adversarial positions. I mean, right now you have a quasi-judicial organization, a legislative organization, and a private utility company, and that's the fee. Oh, and the solar installers who are, they're everybody working for his own kuleana or not working for the common good. And what we need is leadership here. The last administration really did not provide that. Hopefully, this administration will. So it's to answer your question, Marco, it's the leadership. That's what DBED could provide, and that's what's needed.
Well, I want to put in one really good and sincere plug for what DBED does that I really, really appreciate, which is they do a fantastic job at coming up with wonderful data and statistics and putting it in a very friendly, user-friendly format. For example, they just came out with their most recent Hawaii Energy Report this month, which you can get on their website, and it's chock full of a bunch of good info. And I can tell you, I've been looking at their stuff since the 1990s, and I use it to teach my politics of energy class, and it's a fantastic database for what is going on, has been going on in the state in energy, and I really do appreciate what they do in that regard.
I agree with you. I would not disagree with that. But that's only a part of what they should be doing. And appreciate the numbers. You know, it's like navigation. You need to know where you are before you can get where you need to go. And we need to have that information. We need to have a lot of it and the best we can get. But we need more from them than just, data.
You know what we need, Jay? We need a red team within DBED.
You've said that before.
Well, no, I said it with Hawaiian Electric before. I just thought, hey, why not do it in DBED as well?
Okay, how do you do that? Let's take a minute and just, kick that around.
You have to get empowerment from the top exec who's willing to do it.
Who should be on the red team?
Oh, well, I think there are a number of people out there in the community that would do a fantastic job. Again, for those folks who may not have heard our previous conversation on the red team, just in a nutshell, it's essentially empowering a group of individuals within a bureaucracy or organization to essentially kind of take a contrarian view and challenge the orthodox dogma, whatever that orthodox dogma happens to be in that organization. And it's challenging assumptions, and it's getting the people to think outside their usual cubicle or their box. And it's especially when you've got perhaps stagnation or lack of bureaucratic efficiency and lack of imagination. It can be a very, very important tool in terms of revivifying and improving a bureaucracy or organization.
Yeah, and I'll add one thought to that. In the case of both Hawaiian Electric and DBED, is that the leader there should listen to the red team, and we should actually use them, not just marginalize them. And if we had that, the leadership would be better, and the result would be better for everyone. So let's hope that somebody thinks of an arrangement like that in both places, and let's hope that it's implemented in both places. And let's hope that in this storm you talk about, following the calm here, the storm beginning, I think, with these appointments and the legislative session, that is one of the elements we find is included in the administration's program.
Here, here, and there.
Yes, sir. Marco Mangelsdorf, Provision Solar. Always enjoy talking with him. We find new things that we never expected in just putting our heads together. Here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, enjoying the calm before the storm. As we ramp up to the storm, Marco, we'll have to do it again. How about a month from now?
Indeed, Jay, and part of the joy and great time of going on this meandering journey with one Jay Fidell for the past hour. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Marco. Aloha.